the End Bad Governance protest commenced on August the 1st, some states in the northern part of Nigeria have seen more than others, particularly Kaduna, Kano, Gombe, Borno and Bauchi states. The essence of the protest was, however, lost to the activities of hoodlums who went berserk, looting and destroying properties in some states on day 4 and 5.
Well on ground.
The state governments responded with the declaration of 24-hour curfews. This was followed by convening of Security Council meetings in various states in the north. In Plateau State, after the Security Council meeting, the Commissioner of Police announced the arrest of 14 violators of the curfew.
Everybody should remain indoors. Those that are trekking, henceforth we are going to be picking them. And so far we have made 14 arrests.
Also in Bauchi State, police says it has arrested 3 suspects in connection with the violence in some parts of the metropolis on day 5.
So far, 3 suspects have been arrested and a flag suspected to be Russian flag was also recovered. Meanwhile,
the Gombe state government held what it called a high-level meeting to bolster the security of lives and properties. There were some major resolutions.
Council noted the concern of the public regarding the activities of scrap sellers, popularly known as Babambola or Bola Jari, and directed the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice to come out with operational modalities to regulate their activities.
Additionally, the Gombe State Police Command arrested 111 persons in connection with violence since the protest commenced.
A total number of 111 suspects were arrested and no loss of life was recorded.
The governor of Adamawa State, in a broadcast, appealed to the federal government to address the demands of the protesters. Some residents were quite pleased with the governor's plea.
After the broadcast, the state become calm, and then because he faced the say what people want to hear, the reality. So the fact that there's hunger in the land, that we are trying to see how they can reduce poverty and hunger. I think that is what people want to hear.
It's a different scenario in Katsina State, where some Muslim faithful chose to go spiritual, praying for God's intervention to end the economic hardship and other challenges in Nigeria.
All right, so to give us some perspectives on this protest and looking at some of the twists and turns about the protest, we've got 2 gentlemen here with us. Mr. Lanre Issa-Onilu is the Director General, National Orientation Agency. And we also got Ibrahim Abdullahi, Deputy National Public Secretary of the PDP. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Thank you. Well, I know there's a lot of talk about, in terms of the orientation of all of this, but first of all, how does your office even see all of what is happening in the country at the moment?
Yeah, well, I would say this is the outcome of 3 decades of inaction in terms of value orientation in this country. If we had that in the last 3 decades, we would not be where we are. And that goes not just for the citizens, also for the leadership. You know, for 3 decades, this country has done virtually nothing in terms of providing a guideline, you know, in terms of values that all of us must uphold and respect. And so the citizens that we have now are angry, not just hungry. And you can also understand that. And sometimes when you have hope, it may even mitigate whatever anger you have. But there seems not to be hope because we have not communicated hope, you know, in the last 3 decades. And people have waited. So you can't really blame the citizens, you know, at this stage. So that is now for us to emphasize that need for value orientation, so that whoever is in the leadership and the citizens also would know that we have a role to play in ensuring that all of us put in a very, you know, good shift in terms of how we approach, you know, governance, how we approach citizenship.
Mr. Abdullahi, how do you see it?
Well, I completely disagree with the DG with regards to the reference that he made of 3 decades of accumulated grievance. That cannot be correct because for the 16 years of PDP, we have had a democratic environment where the views of Nigerians were freely, expressed. You will remember even the sitting president in 2012 leading protests everywhere, the voices of dissent that we had way back, which seem to have been suppressed. Where are the Wole Soyinkas? Where are the El-Rufais? Where are all of those people, Femi Falanas, that were on the street in 2012 for a review of this same fuel subsidy or withdrawal of fuel subsidy that was not anywhere close to what we have today? I cannot agree with him completely because 16 years of PDP as a party, we ran this country on a single-digit inflation. We were able to secure debt cancellation. We were able to provide a democratic environment where fundamental rights of citizens were expressed freely. We created the anti-corruption agencies that is today used against some of the political actors in the opposition. We've done everything possible to provide this a sane ambience where democracy will flourish. As at the time we left power, Nigeria was the third fastest growing economy in the world and the fastest in Africa. Today, we are the poverty capital of the world. So it is the failure of a defective system, the 8 years of Buhari and with this horrible 1 year of the APC. That's where we are where we are.
Do you think that your message, the message that you're trying to pass across might be lost on a lot of other people, probably the same way he doesn't agree?
Oh, let me be upfront. I'm not here to represent APC.
I know.
I run an agency that is non-partisan. So I stand here for the country.
Yeah, so that message.
Yeah, no, I need to clear that so that it doesn't think we are here to throw brickbat. NOA is a non-partisan agency. We have offices in the state where there are PDP, Labour, governing, and we represent them. That is part of the role we play, and that is what our act says. So we should be focused on the issues. Now, I'd like to take your question again.
In terms of the message that the NOA is trying to pass across,
yeah.
Could it also be that it might also be lost on a lot of people who may not agree with the message that you probably want to pass across to them, probably the same way he doesn't see it that way?
Yeah, see, I will tell you, I said 3 decades, and that takes care of whatever political party that was in office, whether PDP, APC, or whatever party. And I insist that the last 3 decades, we have the result of our actions and inactions. And this is the time for us to refocus, as a country and do the right thing. The message we are passing to the country is the need for us to have a value system. You cannot go anywhere if you don't even have an identity, identify who you are, and know what are the good things that you're supposed to represent. We're in a country where we have no guidebook in terms of orientation. So as far as NOA is concerned, our focus is to create a value system. Because if leadership has a set of values that they oppose, we will not find ourselves where we are, irrespective of political party that brings you to office. Human beings are human beings. The important thing is for you to get there and be guided. If you're a Christian, you have a guidebook. If you're a Muslim, you have a guidebook. And that give you that kind of guideline on how to conduct yourself wherever you find yourself. And you always look back to want to be the best of a Christian, the best of a Muslim. It's the same way a country requires that kind of situation where you are guided and you have a value system that you...
with a lot of respect for your office, but there are still several questions when people sometimes even ask, is there really any need for the NOA's office? Because the biggest example that anybody can do is look what they do and how they address the economic challenges people are facing. If they do that and lead by example.
So how do you lead by example? That is orientation, that is value. To even have a country, to build Nigeria, you must build Nigerians. If you do not build Nigerians, you cannot build Nigeria. I'll give you recent examples. If you go to Third Mainland Bridge now, you're going to have, a fantastic road you've never seen over decades. It's been rehabilitated. But barely 2 weeks after, a Nigerian climbed onto the bridge and began to remove the railings. What's that? Lack of values.
Not economic.
Second
not
Niger
hunger.
Bridge. Huh?
Not hunger.
If you are hungry, the next thing is not to destroy what belongs to you. God, that is not what you're supposed to do. If you're hungry, you're not to destroy what belongs to you, because it belongs to us. Second Niger Bridge, somebody went there and removed the railings, or the metal, on the bridge, to sell for how much? So we all are responsible for this, irrespective of whatever political party, and we have the opportunity now to ensure we do the right thing, create the value system, and uphold those values.
We'll come back to this conversation in a moment, but we need to go to a quick commercial break and be right back. And Ibrahim Abdullahi. Mr. Abdullahi, let me ask you, when people who actually think they've got a reason to protest are out there saying, yes, the authorities, federal and state governors need to do something about the economy, and then the information filters through saying security agencies say they have identified some top politicians from Bauchi, Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, who are sponsoring. They think they are part of the sponsors of the protest, and it kind of deflates that for a lot of people, which then leads to the question, can one then say this protest is not that organic after all?
I think the crux of the matter should be allowing the protest in the first place to, come on board, because a government that has the wherewithal and the intelligence at its disposal, and in fairness to these protesters, they had notified the state that they were going on this 1 month before they embarked on it. It was clear that the government did not take them seriously. We are actually, as a party, condemning the aspect that is violent, those who have stolen the situation to unleash mayhem on their fellow citizens who are also receiving it the harsh way from this inept and clueless APC-led government. The truth of the matter is that it's a bottle-up anger that have accumulated within the last 1 decade. And that is the part I was disagreeing earlier with the DG, who said that it's a 3 decades frustration of the citizens. No, it's a 1 decade, 8 years of Buhari and 1 year plus of Ahmed Bola Tinubu. Nigerians are very resilient people.
Do you agree that politicians have a substantial chunk of the decay in the system and how the economy has run over time?
I will agree with you, actually, but then we're talking about whether Nigerians have been resilient in time past. Yes, they have been. Nigerians had seen hope in this democracy. They had believed that, okay, given it time frame, it will come and work. It will work for the good of the citizens. They were confident. They were loyal, law-abiding citizens. But when it gets to a level where you cannot ventilate, you are suppressed, bottled up anger, it gets to what we call breaking point. You can no longer
suppressed.
The citizens, of course, you and I. You're talking about likelihood of you even joining it. And that is true. Every right-thinking Nigerian should begin to contemplate whether, but we will do, you and I will do our own
taking a lot
decently.
Out of context.
I don't understand. Can I say a word here?
Where have I gone out of context?
Can I say a word here?
You're saying I'm talking about genuine protest. No, I mean,
please,
just asking questions.
Chamberlain, I would like to say that this hearing is actually unfair. Because I'm not here to defend by the law that set up the agency that I run. I can't sit down here when it begins to be partisan, and I cannot be partisan.
No, you don't have to just speak to the issues that concerns your office.
I can't speak to the issue when it continues to say things that are fallacious, about saying 8 years and 1 year. And I don't want him to push me into where I will be breaking the law that set up my agency. Are you getting the point? Because what everything is saying is absolutely fallacious. We are not aliens to this country. We are all here for the 16 years of PDP. If I use the tongue of myself as the former National Publicity Secretary of APC, I will be talking of the years of locust, 16 years of locust. With the evidence is all over the earth. They wouldn't have lost the election, if they were that good. You understand? So the foundation for whatever we have now started actually within the 16 years period. And this is enough, I would say, about this issue of partisanship. I run an agency that speaks for the whole of this country. So when you bring somebody to pair with me, you bring somebody who wants to speak for the good of the country. not somebody who wants to say fallacious things to look good.
Well, he didn't say he doesn't want the good of the country.
No.
But the thing about this is, clearly, almost a lot of people in the country agree that we have a problem.
Let's talk about the issue of protest.
But how to fix it?
Let's talk about the issue of protest. To say that people who wanted to protest were suppressed. This is the government for 3 weeks was engaging, looking for who actually were the leaders of the protest so that they could engage. The lawyers came forward, they had meeting with them. For wherever they spoke, they said you have the right to protest, but please, we suspect there will be violence. Based on intelligence, has that not come out, to be the truth? So if we were wise enough and we were interested in the good of this country, were we not going to be thinking of how to avert what has happened? To say now that a particular party is sympathizing with people who have lost their lives, whose properties have been destroyed, is to say that that party didn't think well. Because they ought to have known that this will happen, because we all said it.
Yeah, but...
You understand? So let us leave that. If we want to speak for the good of the country, I'm game.
But the thing about that is this.
Partisanship is a waste of time.
But the thing about that is this. Much as the law guarantees people's right to protest, but where lots of people are drawing the line is when people begin to vandalize private property.
Exactly.
I think most political parties that have come here have said the same thing.
Yeah.
That if you vandalize private property, that is criminal.
Yeah, but
that is not acceptable.
But when some leaders of this country were saying, please, let's look for some other means of engaging, because they foresaw this.
No, but
some other leaders in this country were urging them on.
Yeah, but you know that it will be very difficult for you to ask people not to protest. For instance, you know that there are people who genuinely feel hunger in the country. They genuinely want to say, look, I need to get my voice heard. Yeah. And there will always be. It's in every part of the country, every part of the world.
Yeah, we recognize that.
Where people will want to take advantage. So then, you can't, because of that, say, well, if you want to do genuine protest, don't come out.
No, that don't come out. That's why government eventually provided places where they could do it. So that if you just do it here, it will not give the people who are going to hijack it and have foment trouble that opportunity to do so. But some of them didn't listen. We have all seen the result. So what we should be talking about, if we truly love this country now, is to pull back and look at where we went wrong and ensure that, whatever they are saying about hunger, you are talking of a government within 1 year, because my agency is to communicate government policies, irrespective of whatever political party.
So do you think there's a failing in that communication?
That's not failing.
If people knew.
Yeah, no, it's not about if people knew. If people do not have ulterior motives. Now, there are people who are genuinely complaining, and there are people who are taking advantage of that situation to want to, cause great chaos in the country. For whatever reason, not because of hunger. There are those who are complaining because of hunger, genuinely. And I can tell you that in the last... We had student loan 10 years ago. Nobody will be talking or complaining about purchasing power, because that will have taken care of a very big aspect of whatever your out-of-pocket expenses are. If we had credit scheme, consumer credit scheme in the last 10 years, we will not be here. Or in the last 30 decades, we will not be here complaining of all of this. If we had taken care of the issue of subsidy, we will not be here. If people didn't have the political will to do that...
Now that is where the bone of contention is.
Yeah, if we didn't have the political will to do
about that subsidy, you know that's an area that, since you brought it up, is a hugely controversial part.
Yeah, it's not controversial because everybody agreed on it. All the three candidates...
No, but the ACN at the time didn't agree.
No. You see, when you are removing subsidy, and you're providing alternative, it's different from when you're saying I'm removing subsidy without providing alternative.
Okay, let's fast track to this government.
Okay.
When that announcement came through, because the bone of contention at the time, when ACN, the issue they raised was, no, you can't do this, you have to tell the people this. And at that time, I also remember there were campaigns. Former CBN governor, former coordinating minister of economy, they were trying to address the country, talking about why we needed to get it off. And Labour at that time, I said, put in place this measure and that measure. But this time, That announcement came on the first day, which they even told us behind the scenes that it was not in script, that he went off script.
He didn't go off script. He only announced a policy that was already in place.
No, but the former president suspended implementation. PIA was there during Buhari's time.
Not suspension. There was no budget for it from June 2023.
Yeah, but the law was there.
Which law?
The PIA law was there, which guaranteed removal of subsidy. But the president at that time, too, suspended implementing that particular clause.
You are not getting the point. From June, there was not a penny in the budget. From June, subsidy.
June.
So the president,
but the president announced it in May.
May 29th. The following day, I mean, you're already in June.
But Mr. Leo, are you telling me that the president couldn't have said, you could have left it out on that day, come in and say, okay, you know what, look, this is what I'm going to do. Rally the troops so that when the announcement comes through, everybody's on the same page. Even NNPC themselves didn't see it coming, according to what we heard.
We didn't see what's coming. Did NNPC put any money for subsidy? There was no money for subsidy, whether the president announced it or not. There was no budget for subsidy by the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. It was on its way out. No budget. So whether the president announced it or didn't announce it, there was no penny put in that budget for subsidy. So the issue is there any alternative this government has provided? That is what we should be talking about. And I think what the media should be promoting is the alternative. To run away from even this dependence on
Isn't it when the media see alternative, they promote what they see?
No, I will tell you, if you have not seen it, I will tell you that in the last 8 months, this government has vigorously, and the evidence is there. If we have a publication we call The Explainer, the last 3 editions, we published thousands of conversion centers where you can convert your vehicle to CNG, where you spend 40% of whatever you are spending on fuel as we speak.
Mr. Larry.
So hold on, please. Let me wrap up that. And then there's 1 million kits going around now. A lot of private investors are also going into that. So we must, rather than talking of how to bring down back subsidy, we should be talking of how to run away from dependence on oil completely.
Mr. Larry, The Explainer. What is the reach of The Explainer?
See, the Explainer is just one of several ways we engage with the citizens.
What's the reach of
It's for the elite. And there are other platforms we use.
But that's the thing, we're talking about a people who are not the elite. A people who look at the elite.
Are you listening to me? I said there are several platforms. The Explainer is targeting a particular group. Okay. As I speak to you now, if you come to NOA and you ask me who in your local government, who is the chairperson of the Tailor Association, I will give you the contact. We are reaching out in every local government. We are reaching out to real people who are not.
How are you doing? Because we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talked about when we had this conversation was about grassroots communication.
Yes.
A lot of people are not aware of a lot of the things going on.
You have not done any survey. As I speak to you on my table.
Because when they hear, we can tell that when they don't know.
You cannot tell. Let me tell you why you cannot tell.
When they hear the president during his speech say, this is what we are doing, this is what we're doing. It sounds nice. What they want to know is how is it affecting my pocket? Yeah. That conversation about how these policies impact them and the time frame is one of the things that we've been looking at the National Orientation Agency to wonder how much communication are you doing?
Yeah, because
that people don't
you are
know
on television and you think everything happens on television. No. As I speak to you, we have offices in all the local government and we are engaging people in real time, going to people's homes, meeting with the stakeholders. You can't see that on television. You can't see that on Facebook or Twitter. We are doing all of that at the grassroots. But people, when you see something happening on television, you assume it is not happening. You know, this protest would have been worse if we are not engaging people at the grassroots. And that's why it is not organic. That's why you will know some people are actively pressing some button somewhere to ensure that this happened. Otherwise, it wasn't an uprising by the people. No, it was not.
You know, we talked about a values charter that the president was supposed to sign this year. Has that values charter been signed?
Not signing. You don't sign.
Has it been launched, I think?
You know, it will be unveiled. But we are implementing. Unveiling is just the ceremonial.
Because that values charter, you know, we've been talking about human capital development in Nigeria. And you have said it several times, that the first way to change our country is to change the mindset of the people.
Absolutely.
When we're looking at these lootings and things going on, it starts to make us wonder, these are people. How did they get here? Why are their mindsets? Because everyone is hungry, but I'm not going to go and steal rail tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are people who will steal, who will vandalize. How do we change that mindset? What is your office doing in that regard?
That's just what you just referred to now as the value charter. So this is a country that since independence, we do not have any institution to nurture the citizen. Any country, any serious country in the world creates institutions of nurturing. And it is these institutions that you come across that provide you the guideline, bring you up, as model citizens, instill in you those values that will guide you, whether you are a leader or you are a citizen. We do not have. So, and that's what this government is trying to put in place. We have 7 institutions that are going to be put in place that wherever you go, you will come across these institutions of nurturing. And people will grow up knowing what their rights and responsibilities are, and properly brought up, as model citizens, as Nigerians, with identity, with values that we can define. That's what this is all about.
Apologies, we need to just clear some things. So please, let's hear you about what you think of this.
Well, it's just sad, the narrative that is being shown by my brother, the DG. You see, clearly speaking, it got to a point where he had to now wear his previous cap of being the spokesperson of the party.
No, so you needed to clarify some things because of the angle you were going.
I don't think there's any clearance here. What I said here, I still stand to be corrected. Go and conduct opinion poll with Nigerians. You would agree with me that 99.9% of Nigerians will agree with what I'm saying here. It's not enough for somebody because you occupy a public office, and the laws established in the National Orientation Agency will not expect you to come and be speaking for the government at the detriment of the citizen. That is it. We have had MAMSA, we have had other people occupy this office before my brother Issa, and then we've seen how they have done with the responsibility. Much as, yes, your employers need to be satisfied, and that is what you're doing here, the fact needs to be told. I cannot be gagged into saying that it's a partisan. No, I cannot come here and be expected to be speaking in support of a government that has inflicted penury on Nigerians, and as an opposition party.
I mean, I know that in many ways, you would want to talk, and I hear people from PDP do this quite a lot. Oh, it's 8 years. But the truth is, as opposition, do you believe that you have done your bit in nation building as the opposition? Is there a shadow cabinet? Is there someone from the PDP? Is there something from the opposition that says this is how things should have been done? Let us try this, let us try that. Constituting a shadow cabinet as we see around the world. Is there anything like that from the PDP?
Of course. That's why I'm here. I'm one of the cabinet members of the PDP who are now, churning out the narrative out here. We are doing what we need to do within the confines of the law. Like yesterday, I was discussing with the RISE, and a question sprang up at a point. Why are we not being heard like APC did in 2012, 13, 14, which led to the collapse of the PDP government? I said that no, we are guided by civility and decorum. We do our things differently. We cannot be expected. Where are those ones who were churning out the propaganda way back? The Erufais, the Lai Mohammed, all of that. It ended in lies and falsehood. The government came into being after bringing the PDP behemoth after 16 years. And then they now ran 8 years.
Are you blaming the people for electing the government?
Of course, I am not blaming the people. What I'm only saying here is that lies, fallacies, and falsehood, which is accusing me of saying here, were what characterized the propaganda that they came up with in 2020. They were ill-prepared. We saw a president who understood nothing as
So where do we place the people who usually go out to vote, in spite of the messages they hear from politicians?
Well, it's a failure on their part as well. We're expecting them now, and you could see that their determination is coming all out to see what will happen between now and 2027. Nigerians are waking up to the realization that they are the ones that have the responsibility to salvage themselves from this despondency and despair in the land. You will see a different Nigeria, you will see a different nation come 2027. This I can guarantee you, from the activities and from what we have seen. There's no reason for anybody to take Nigerians for granted any further. It is happening even around our neighboring countries. We've seen Niger now salvage itself from the stranglehold of France. We've seen Burkina Faso. We've seen Mali. We've seen even a saner climb, an advanced democracy now. We've seen the protests in the UK. We've seen what has happened in Bangladesh, where a sitting prime minister of over 2 decades was chased out of the presidential villa. People shouldn't be taken for granted. It gets to a level where people will say enough is enough. And I think Nigeria has got to that level.
So the other part of that conversation is this. Yes, at the federal level, lots of questions have to be asked. But the states, we have governors who are almost in all the major political parties in this country in those states. Are the citizens of those states better off in any way?
Yes, of course. We've seen some of the hopes that you could take. For example,
where have we seen it?
Have we seen Lagos State, for example? I give you Lagos State. I give you Kano.
You're playing into Mr.
No. Let's be honest. I'm not saying
that. Being honest, I'll be so glad.
Yes.
So he said, let's be honest.
I'm happy to hear that.
I've said Kano. I've said Plateau. I've said Taraba. I have said many of them. We have all of them. I've said Rivers. I've said Bayelsa. I've said Delta.
How?
All of these people, have you seen them crying in the manner that...
They are protesting on the streets.
The protest is the adverse policies of the federal government as promoted by the APC-led federal at the center.
So you're exonerating state governments from all of this?
What we are saying, are they encountering the level of frustration at the center? No.
Wait.
Let's get this reconciled.
Are you saying that if one is in a state,
yes,
and they elected a state governor, they've got a state house of assembly, who are supposed to ensure that the resources which has increased to the states is utilized properly to improve infrastructure and the economy of citizens in the states? If they protest, they should go and blame the federal government.
No, what I am saying is that the governors themselves have been affected by the adverse policies of the center. You need an inspirational leader at the center for these things to function. Even if the states are doing the best that they are doing, with this kind of rooftop inflation promoted by the central APC, it's not possible that you have the citizens. But the governors are doing the best they could. And I even mentioned opposition government. Look at what is happening in Abia. That's an opposition party, not my party. But there's hope. The governor is doing everything he would do to ameliorate the suffering, as opposed to what obtains in most of the APC-led, which are a majority. All
right, my colleague Ayo is in Lagos, but clearly there are several grounds to cover here, which I'm seeing people saying, look, we haven't even scratched the surface. Ayo.
Well, you know, you have actually started the conversation from where I was going to go, talking about the state. So, Mr. Abdullahi, I'm going to stick with you for a bit. My colleague asked the question whether or not you were exonerating the state governments. Yesterday, Seun Okinbaloye on Politics Today, my colleague, was having a conversation with Mr. Falana, and he was detailing the amounts that state governments have collected. He didn't say this PDP state or APT state. He just said state governments collect X amount. And in fact, Mr. Falana went back into 2023 and detailed that the state government collected money in the region of trillions. The federal government came out and says more than 5 trillion. Irrespective of whether it's PDP or APC, it doesn't matter. So the question now is, are you still exonerating the state governments? Are you saying that with 5 trillion naira plus, they have done everything they can do to ameliorate the sufferings of the people and ensure that we don't get to the point where we are right now?
That's for you. Saying you seem to be exonerating this.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Abdullahi?
There are states that I have not spoken about, but there are states that are doing fairly well within the confines of, or rather the opportunity of the available resources at their disposal. And I've cited example of one, which is Lagos, and they said I'm playing to no. You be fair, call a spade when you see one. That is the good thing about the PDP. We're not blinded by sentiment or partisanship not to see good when you need to speak for it. I've cited example of states like Oyo, the neighboring states to Lagos, doing very well. You could see the level of hope and confidence in the citizen, inspired by the governor. You've seen what is happening in Plateau. He came and inherited a state that was almost bankrupt, but he was able to resuscitate it in 1 year. He has given hopelessness with the people-oriented policies the governor is churning. So what I'm only saying is that I'm speaking for those states, including Abia, where a different political party is in government, Abga for that matter, and I'm speaking for it. Then we have even seen Anambra State. Some things are happening in some states, but when you now have a terrible APC-led federal government doing the much that it is doing, the twin maladies of these two policies that the government brought in place as a result of insensitivity, if you permit me, that is what is bringing all of this in. You cannot resume. You needed to have gone into the office to appreciate what the responsibilities are. You wouldn't just go and withdraw subsidy from swearing and the point of taking oath of office. And then you get in there and you are realizing, short of coming to say to Nigerians, go to hell in the speech of Mr. President the day before yesterday, there was nothing. The speech was empty. But Nigerians expected him to address the problems. The Kenyan example would have served a good impetus for Nigeria. which is that when the people went on the street and told the president and the government that they were not comfortable with the policy, they reversed some
Mr. Abdullahi, I wanted us to speak about the governors, the state governors largely, and to a large extent. Just a moment, if you can hear me, Mr. Abdullahi. Just a moment, if you can hear me, Mr. Abdullahi. Speaking to the issues that the federal government, we have spoken about quite a bit, and I think that you've emphasized that repeatedly. But let us speak to specifics. For instance, most of the time, people say in the various states that they don't even know how the budgets of their states are being executed, and the governors, according to some, are just keeping these things under wraps. For instance, and I think it is something we can go to, what is the position of the PDP on the Supreme Court judgment that ruled financial autonomy for local governments?
I was here just 2 weeks ago on that same subject, right here, and I spoke about our support as a party to that idea. It's a commendable development in our polity. It is one thing that will exonerate these local governments so that they would perform like they used to do in time past.
Okay,
and
well, on that, a quick follow-up to that, Mr. Abdullahi. Just a second, a quick follow-up to that. Are you aware that the governor of your state, who is a member of your political party, doesn't tend to agree with that, and that all the local government chairmen in the states have one way or the other agreed that they do not want to obey the Supreme Court judgment of financial autonomy for local governments?
Not say that. What he was saying is that the election had held before the judgment came on board. And if the judgment comes, and that judgment is of the federal government, which is, a Supreme Court, which will now become the law in the country, he is saying that to that extent, it will be deferred to the Supreme Court, which would prevail ultimately. When you have a state law conflicting with the central law, the law of the center or the Constitution of the Federal Republic, which that judgment constitutes now, then the law will give, the state law will give way.
So would you then be advising, just a second, Mr. Abdullahi, in the name of governance, if you can hear me, would you be advising the governor of your state, would you recommend to the governor of your state, who is a member of your party, to that, particularly when the local government chairmen in the states say they do not want to, in a way saying they don't want to obey the Supreme Court judgment, they are telling the federal government to pay their money to the state government. Would you advise the state governor to make a statement to that, telling the local government chairmen that no, they must obey the Supreme Court judgment and rescind their statements?
The governor is a law-abiding citizen, and to that extent, he will appreciate what the responsibility is before his desk. I don't see him as an individual, and the party does not, see him either as an individual, that would go against, that judgment. Whatever it is that will advance our democracy and will remain within civility, we will promote it, and the governor will do just that. But it's not in my place to advise him. He has a legal attorney general of the state. He is also guided by the Constitution, which he has sworn to uphold. So what you will see in the days ahead will be something that will not go against the expected rules of engagement. The governor will do everything possible to ensure that he advances, the rule of law as provided for in our Constitution.
There are many other issues around that, Mr. Abdullahi, and the very, very instructive question that my colleague Kayla asked you earlier about the role that the PDP and other opposition parties are playing to ensure that the needful is done, not just speaking politics, but as have been advised here, to speak to the issues of governance so that we do not have what the fears that's going on all over the world now. They can be going on everywhere else, but they shouldn't go on in Nigeria, particularly because we have everything it takes to stave such things off. But there is more after this. Well, thank you so much. So let's get back to that concept. Of course, the effect of all of good governance or a lack of it is what we have been discussing, and we still have our two guests, Mr. Abdullahi and Mr. Oniru, with us this morning. So let me remain with you, Mr. Abdullahi, to the conversation we were having the other time. There's been an increase in clamor for attention to be paid to the activities of state governments. For instance, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, that was seriously highlighted, saying that 5-point-something trillion naira had been paid to the governors over the years, and it would look like no one is really giving them attention. If I quote it correctly, citizens wallow in misery as governors cede duties to FG amid 5.34 trillion naira cuts. How would you respond to the call by citizens for more engagement by their governments? Because to a large extent, everyone knows what policies the federal governments are putting out, but very, very little is known by the people, with even less level of engagement at the state level.
Could you say that again? I didn't get the beginning of the question, though.
Okay. I was just calling your attention to the fact that there's been increasing clamor for attention to be paid to the states, citing the example on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, which references FAC allocations and says that citizens wallow in misery as governors cede their duties to the federal government amid 5.34 trillion naira cut. So one wonders, shouldn't we be asking for more? I mean, you said the other time that the governors are doing the best they can. 5.34 trillion naira within a very short time. You think they have done enough?
Well, I think the citizens of these states should hold their governors responsible. That is what is behoven of them. They have state assemblies in all of these states, and the citizens are there themselves to keep vigil. It is good development that this information is made available to the citizens in these respective states. So they should follow up and know what their governors are doing with these resources. They should hold them accountable. But thus far, we have some governors, like I cited examples, doing fairly well, and that's why we spoke for them. But all of these things will derive inspiration from the central government. And of course, again, I would call on the central government to follow further, not what we saw under Buhari, where you just assign somebody and you will not investigate what he is doing. You're satisfied. If Tinubu and his APC-led government, President Tinubu and his APC-led government, wants to hold the governors accountable with the resources they have given them, then the citizens should also play their part in ensuring that that is achieved collectively. So to be honest with you, we expect that the citizens will do that, and the houses of assemblies in this respective state should follow suit.
It says in the first quarter of this year, 7.09 trillion naira was made available to federating entities. And that's quite a significant thing. And 12% of the world's population are living in extreme poverty in Nigeria. 12% of people living in extreme poverty all over the world are living in Nigeria. That data also came out. And it was talking especially about the states. And we heard that a good number of them are living in the northern part of Nigeria. It calls to attention whether or not, in your view, the governors at the subnational levels are doing anything. If you can give us an example of what you think the state governments, particularly in the northern parts of Nigeria, are doing anything significantly to bring down the poverty figures in their states. They have what they can do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have governors. Money is committed to them. Resources are committed to them. Do you think they're doing enough to bring down those poverty figures in their states?
I have not spoken for the governors, Ayo, and I have not accepted that they are doing well enough. I'm only saying that some of them, within what we know, is in the public arena. That is the resources at their disposal. They are doing fairly well. And I cited examples with a few. Now, if what we are getting to hear lately from the federal government through the Minister of Information, that such amount of money was made available to them recently, and then you are churning out the figures to corroborate that argument, then the citizens should hold these governors responsible. And the houses of assembly should also do their constitutional role by not playing or pandering at the doorstep of the governors. Because we appreciate that a number of them are brought into office courtesy patronage through maybe the voice of the governors, and that's what obtains in most of the states. So they don't get to check the books of the governors. Of course, the governors are enjoying immunity now. You will not expect anybody to infringe on the rights and their fundamentals as provided for by law. But again, those who are assigned to do it, like the houses of assembly, and of course the citizens of the state, should say, we have received this information, this amount of money was allocated to our state this month. What have you been able to do? They can hold the governor. They can go on public. They can go to the media. Media organization is always open to assisting them towards making this thing public. By the time they consistently pursue this thing and remain tenacious, with the argument, the governors will be compelled to do their bidding, because in the first place, that's their responsibility. That's why they are in the office. Citizens have a duty, and I agree with you, they are not doing enough in some places, but citizens have a duty to mandate these governors, to perform excellently. Otherwise, the essence will be defeated. But all of it, again, would receive inspiration from the central government, as I earlier stated.
Well, before I go to Mr. Issa Onilu, let me just ask you this, just one question. Everyone who has been elected into office in the 36 states of Nigeria and 774 local governments of the country, they were elected on the platform of a political party for a reason. The political parties have a role to play in ensuring good governance in the state. Don't you agree?
I agree absolutely. And that's why every party is guided by a manifesto. And the governor would have campaigned to the citizens, the same thing a local government chairman does, the same thing a president does alongside their deputies, to be able to attract the favors. Now, as a party, we hold meetings intermittently. Of course, the Governors Forum is alive. PDP Governors Forum, like the APC Governors Forum, like every other political party's Governors Forum. And then, of course, we have the General Governors Forum themselves, where all of these issues are deliberated. But as our party does, we call them always to review their performances in line with the assurances that they gave us when picking the form. And then we follow it up with supervision of their activities. It's not enough for you to just listen to a governor. You go to the states, even though they commission these projects, we have seen them. You've seen the performance of the governor of Adamawa, which I did not cite as example earlier. You've seen what is happening with the governor of Akwa Ibom, doing more than enough, and the citizens are expressing delight in what has, even though that has been consistent, even from the days of the sitting Senate President, Governor Akpabio, as he was then. So certainly, we are following up. The parties have responsibility to check the activities of this governor as the platform with which under which they were elected. And so we're doing more than enough in that regard.
All right. Well, let me come to you, Mr. Issa Onilu. You were talking to us the other time about what your agency is doing in the area of enlightening people, giving Nigerians the necessary orientation. With these protests all over the nation, it would seem like the protests, the enlightenment or the orientation engagement that your agency has been doing isn't cutting it. Otherwise, people would actually be the ones campaigning in favor of whatever it is that you are talking about here now, as opposed to you having to do this job of telling us what you're doing. What are the challenges, if there are, that you can say, okay, the agency is encountering these challenges? What's been the feedback from the local governments that you say you have been reaching to, and how effective has that been for you in ensuring that Nigerians have the adequate orientation? So otherwise we shouldn't have had this kind of protests all over the nation.
Well, let me say again, as I started, that about 3 decades now, that agency was completely abandoned. It was nothing to even talk about completely, But in the last 10 months, thereabout, and especially since this government came into place, there's so much emphasis now on orientation. And it's taking us all this time to create a lot of platforms of engagement, and also to rejig the system. The staff, for instance, the establishment staff for NOA was 7,000, now less than 4,000 staff. In many of the local governments, we have only 1 staff, left there. So over the last 3 decades, a lot has happened that NOA has completely almost, been incapacitated. But things are changing. In the last 10 months, we've done a lot. I've been to 17 states. to meet with a lot of stakeholders, the traditional rulers, the religious leaders. We have put in place blueprints, getting different segments of the society, blueprints on the National Identity Project, under which we have the National Values Charter. Because it's like you can discuss Christianity or Islam without the Quran and Bible. How would that be? We don't have any value system, I will continue to say that, in this country. So when you don't have that value system, it is difficult for people to even know what their responsibilities are. So now, I can tell you that NOA is now up and doing. We have the explainer that we spoke about, which is targeted at the elite. Like I told you, that we have data of artisanal and trade associations in all local governments in Nigeria, and we are reaching out to them through our local government staff that we call community orientation and mobilization officers. They are doing advocacy visits to stakeholders. They are meeting with market women, meeting with barber tailors association, and all of that. So we are doing all of that. But the real issue is that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, since he came on board, it is not by accident that you have the Ministry of Information and National Orientation. It used to be Ministry of Information and Culture. No, there's now emphasis on orientation. And the work we are doing at NOA, the president is deeply concerned about it and is doing a lot. And in a couple of weeks, 1 month, 2 months, Nigerians will see the difference for what we have done in the last 10 months in terms of rejigging the system. So they will see it. The National Identity Project itself will be unveiled by the president in a few weeks' time. He will unveil it, and then they will roll out all this to engage with the people. But let me go back to saying that, you see, it is difficult to talk to a people who have for several years been let down. Nigerians feel let down. And when that situation has come, the first question they will ask you is, another promise that will not be kept. So we must prove to Nigerians that this government is keeping to the promises. And that's why I want to advise us, all of us that are involved in information dissemination. Anybody who is making demand of subsidy removal should be brought back is making an emotional demand, not an economic demand. Because you have to also prove that if it is brought back, it will solve the issue of poverty. It will not. It will aggravate it. So what we should be doing is, how do we survive in spite of the removal? And so we need to promote all the effort of this government to ensure that we survive without that subsidy. And I speak to the local government, which my brother here referred to earlier, and he commended this government. I think that's about the biggest thing that has happened to this country in the last 3 decades, that autonomy for local government. I can tell you clearly that's
Mr. Onuru, just one moment. Yeah. On that same issue that you're mentioning, one of the natural reactions a good number of people will have, when we speak about whether or not people will trust the government, why should people trust any government? And right now, we're not just talking about the federal government, we're talking about state governments as well, as Mr. Abdullahi has mentioned, and even the local government administrations. Over the years, they come, they campaign, and the only time some people see any semblance of governance is any semblance of any government official in their environment. It's only during elections. So when you come and you make any promises to them, why should they believe you? How should this government, or any government at that, particularly at the state level, be engaging their people? What role can the NOA play in helping the state governments to communicate with the people? Because this is not just about the federal government, as you have said, and I think Mr. Abdullahi has also agreed with you. It's in the states where the people live. So how should the NOA, for instance, be collaborating with the state governments to put out word as to whatever it is that they have and the word that they will keep to the people?
Yeah, let me say that the easiest thing to do is to allow people to lose hope. When they have lost hope, it is difficult to bring it back. When there's no trust, to bring it back is always very difficult. That's why government must be careful at every level to ensure that people don't have any reason to lose hope in what they are doing. Let me repeat again that the act that set up NOA makes it a 3-tier agency. we represent the federal government, the state government, and the local government, irrespective of political parties. So our local government offices are working with the local government authorities, no matter what political party. And on a daily basis, in fact, most of our staff are residents in the local government council secretariat itself in the state, working with them in all their programs. The state also, we are working with all the state government, irrespective of political parties, and promoting whatever activities they are doing to the people. But our law also says we must get feedback for government. So every 2 weeks, I sign on what we call Pulse of the Nation, which is sent to the president, the vice president, the NSA, the service chiefs, and now we're expanding to all the governors in the country.
There's a pulse for the nation. From a viewer. Feedback. DG, Bikunle. Guys, can we see it? This is what he said. What?
It's the way you said it.
It's DG Bikunle's message I'm about to read.
Okay, go ahead.
He said, the NOA hasn't been visible. Let them engage people more. All the government policies weren't spread by NOA. I'm hearing for the first time about the explainer.
Okay, yeah. The explainer, we had the 20th edition. But like I said, the 20th edition last Friday. It comes out every Friday. But like I said, it is not the only thing we are doing. Because this is a country where you have the youth population, dominant population is the youth. So you have the 35 and below, about 75% of our population. And their playing field is the social media. So you cannot reach them with the explainer. So for instance, that generation, how do you engage with them? They want fun around whatever you are doing with them. So you have to create that. They want to be incentivized, whatever you are doing. So just
incentivized or make it look exciting.
Yeah, that's what
delivery.
Yeah. So what did we do? To get them to know what is going on. So we have to meet them halfway. Just 3 weeks ago, we did what we call gamification quiz, where we have 100 set of questions about government policies. So we launch it. It was on a Friday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You go there, you play the quiz, and you answer questions based on what government is doing. We also have AI voice assistant now in NOA, that you can even ask the AI voice assistant about the question and it will give you the answer on any government policy.
Is there a slogan? Is there a slogan for the NOA in this administration?
I'm coming. Please let me wrap up on this. So when you play the quiz, you win airtime instantly. Okay. That is the incentive to get you to come and learn about what the government is doing. So, and that is just one. We have series of platforms and engagement vehicles that we are using depending on the media habits of that particular audience segment. Now, on the slogan, the first thing I said when I resumed office is that we can the easiest way out is to start throwing slogan. We have had a lot of slogans in this country. Did they solve the problem? You had, Andrew, please don't check out. You had Nigeria, good people, good nation. You have change begins with me. Of course, there will be slogan, but they are not the solutions. The solution is
not about it being a solution. Sorry, Mr. Larry. It's about visibility, because that's what we're seeing in the messages.
I'm coming.
Some people are saying that they don't even know that the NOA has been around all this.
Yeah, of course.
Since we came into office.
Yeah, for 3 decades, NOA is completely almost dead. Almost. And that's what we are doing now to bring it back. Okay. Yes, and that's why we are creating all these platforms of engagement. And like I said, in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, because the president has done a lot now to help NOA to be active. So in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, people will begin to now see a lot of activities going on. But about the slogan, we spoke to the National Identity Project. You have to build slogan around value system. And so that's what the president is unveiling. And that's why I'm not going to, come up to say this is what the slogan is. But we have that. That's why I said there's a blueprint that we are going to unveil. And when it's unveiled, then the campaign, it's not just going to be Nigerian campaign. It's a global campaign about our identity, about who we are, about our value system, about what we represent, so that anybody who acts contrary to that, we can say this person is not representing us. So that's what we are doing about all of that. So, but our job, like I said, is two-way. We disseminate government information, we generate feedback on every 2 weeks back to the government. As I speak now, the one for that ends on July whatever is on my table.
So you basically get the pulse of the people and you're the one that communicates it to the president.
Yeah.
Many Nigerians will say that you've been communicating wrongly to him because the last time they heard him speak, it does feel like he, at least for some people, that he felt a little, he sounded detached from the Nigerian people, like he wasn't a part of Nigerians, not seeing the sufferings of the people. Can Nigerians hold you responsible for that?
Well, I actually do not agree with that opposition that the president does not feel the pulse or what the people are going through. He has said it repeatedly. But even, because he's a man of foresight, even before his election, he said there will be protests. Because he would take decisions that people, past presidents ran away from, which they all knew was the solution. He would take those decisions that would be protest. Because he had gone through it in Lagos. He got to Lagos 1999 as governor. He came up with reforms that people protested.
So why is he saying we shouldn't protest now?
But now, people of Lagos would look back and say, oh, so that's why he did all these things in 1999, up until 2000.
I want to be able to.
So now,
because we have just 7 minutes to go.
Extend it.
I should extend it. I want to be able to talk about nationhood and the role of the NOA in nationhood. I know it does seem like we're not speaking a lot to the PDP, but it's because a lot of questions have come in about your office. The job of your office in creating a sense of nationhood where we are actually a nation, not just a country, and where we see things in our nation as ours and actually believe in it. What roles have you played since you came in as NOA DG in fostering that mindset? Okay,
so to create that nationhood, because like I agree with you that we are a country and we have to take that journey to nationhood. To do that, you must have a value system. That is what led to the National Identity Project. You cannot legislate upon patriotism. You can't enforce it. You must motivate it. You must create conditions for people to love their country. So, and that's why there are two differences from what past governments have done in terms of orientating Nigeria compared to what this government is doing. One is that in the past, all efforts were geared towards the citizens. Citizens must do this. Citizens must do that. But this government says no. It takes two to fix this. Leadership must also put something on the table. There must be commitment from both sides to say, okay, this is what the leadership is doing. And these are the parameters to judge the leaders. And the citizens, these are what the reciprocal responsibilities are. And upon those parameters, to also judge citizenship. That is one thing that was missing. So that's why it is a charter. We call it National Values Charter, because it's an agreement between the leadership and the citizen. So when this is unveiled, the leaders, people who are in leadership position, will see what their responsibilities are. And those are going to be the parameters to hold them accountable. The same thing for the citizens. You mentioned the duty of care the last time we were talking. It's one of that. Then again, the second thing that I'd always been missing is that you can put up a good slogan. You can put up a value system. But there must be institutions that you create to nurture citizens to be able to imbibe those values, including those who will become governors tomorrow, those who will become president tomorrow. Everybody must grow up nurtured on those values.
Or else they'll change it to hunger, this slogan.
Exactly.
Mr. Abdullahi, give us your concluding thoughts about all of this, because right now, even as we speak, there are people who still think that, look, with the removal of subsidy, with the way the economy is, with the non-performance of the state governors, with the attention or expectation from local governments, a lot needs to be done across all levels of governance to ensure that the people feel the impact of governance.
Well, ours is to call on the federal government, and it is important the federal government appreciates that everything that needs to be done will end on the table of the president. And the table of the president involves the governors, the senators, the ministers, and all of those persons he employed, including my brother, Larry.
What about the governors?
Of course, I mentioned the governors. I said the governors, the senators, and the ministers.
Oh, okay.
Now, it is important to appreciate that it's a national responsibility that all of us must, deliver. But the president should, like he had always done before becoming the president, remember the protest he led during the military,
Only recently, a video was viral by the former minister of the APC, Solomon Dalong, who was saying that it was the same Tinubu that was inviting them over as students to Lagos for them to protest under the bridges in the days of the military.
All right.
He did that as a private citizen or a leader of the party in 2012, and he has maintained consistently that protest is within the rights and privileges, provided for by law to the citizens. Now again, the citizens are protesting hunger. So he must deliberately put a policy in place. And one of it is rescinding the decision that some of those demands these people came up with, it will not have escalated to the level it is today if the president had only yielded to their demands and at least withdraw some of the things that he has put in place.
I want to thank both of you for coming on. Larry Onilu is the Director General, National Orientation Agency, and Ibrahim Abdullahi, Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. Thank you, both of you, for particularly waiting longer than it was supposed to be originally. I appreciate both of you for coming on. But above all else, federal, state, and local government, all of them need to do a lot more. All of them. Well, we have some messages. We'll just take some of them. This is from Peter Olusanjo talking about changing the nation. He says the behavior of citizens will not change until politicians stop using their influence to obstruct the consequences of their actions, as well as those of the general public. Politicians are a significant contributor to the growing unpatriotism among citizens. They must allow justice to prevail in all aspects of governance, ensuring that no one is above the law without consequences for wrongdoing. He goes on to say that.
Olatubosun Ajayi says, since our politicians of whatever political inclination have proved to be bad losers, I think we should consider carefully if it's morally right for one who had either contested elections under political parties or demonstrated political partisanship to still parade himself or herself as a human rights activist. I think we can take one more. Taufik Odetunde says, okay, so Taufik, I can see you and Olamu, you are from Ibadan. But before we go, they said your Twitter handle is not functional for the NOA.
It is. I can tell you it is. All our handles are functional, completely.
Okay. Just go and take the quiz and win your prize. Is that you? Okay, there you go. All right, that wraps it up. Well, thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Train Bellino, so goodbye.
Have a nice day ahead. I'm Kayla Magwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Bye for now.